Good evening. My name is Luann Thomas Ewald, and I am the proud Chief Operating Officer at Mott Children's Hospital and Von Voigtlander Women's Hospital. I am so happy to be with you tonight to celebrate the first and hopefully the only virtual CHAMPS for Mott event. It gives me such pride and joy to spend time and to spend effort with those people that help lift us up every single day.
You know, my labor itself was, as any labor is, it wasn't easy, but we made it through and everything seemed great. We were just on cloud nine. That very same day, within 24 hours of leaving the hospital and being discharged, we noticed that Olin was jerking around a lot.
Rhythmic motions in his right arm.
His right leg, his right arm, his kind of right cheek muscles, his eye, everything would either blink or jerk rhythmically on the right-hand side.
The rhythmic movement, we first said, well, maybe that's just the twitching that babies do. They jerk their arms and kick their feet.
At first, you know, it just seemed really strange.
But when it kept coming and going rhythmically, we looked more into it.
Okay. This will be a great picture to say. He's just still doing it.
I'm telling you, it goes on and it doesn't stop no matter how calm we'll get him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we were able to capture this motion, this behavior on film. It was sent from my phone to the pediatrician's phone to a specialist at the Mott Children's Hospital. And that specialist said to the pediatrician, get back to that family and tell them to come to the Mott ED immediately.
We were both worried.
Even though there was a line, they called us up to the front. They said that they had been waiting for us. When we got back into an exam room, Olin started to have this behavior and do these motions. And
20 people crashed his room.
Someone pulled a button, an alarm started going off.
We weren't sure what was going on.
People just started filing into the room. I got pushed back into a corner, and they are unhooking Olin from his car seat and saying things like, he's actively seizing, he's losing continence, quick, get a shot of this, bring more people in here, whose child is this? And I was separated from Nate across the room. I was back by all these machines, and I just started to cry. I just was so scared, and I didn't understand why this was happening or even what was happening. They were all just touching my child, and I couldn't get to my child. I couldn't touch him. It went on like that for a while until I was finally able to make my way around the bed to get to Nate so that I could hold him, and I just clung to him, and we were both silent and shaking. They told us that Olin was going to need some tests. I think in many ways we were like any other family. It's baseball games and picnics and fireworks. It's school drop-off with, a kiss and a wave, and the deepest kind of moment of despair came when I said to my husband, what if I never get to really know the person Olin was supposed to be?
I think one of the other realizations, both for care providers and for families, was how complex these diseases can turn out to be when you're no longer looking at just a simple dichotomous outcome of survival versus death, and you're starting to talk about quality of life and talking about the challenges that these patients are going to face now and in the future.
When you become a dad, you're excited to do all those daddy-daughter things. I wanted to protect her. I wanted to instill fear into her future boyfriends. I wanted to make sure I gave her the kind of strength to go out and do whatever she wanted to do.
So everything was going along smoothly until her 20-week ultrasound.
You know, we had been through this before with our son. We knew that the 20-week ultrasound is when you see the heartbeat. You were excited. We were gonna maybe find out the sex of the baby this time because we were hoping for a little girl this time around. So in this ultrasound, we had also invited my mother-in-law, Jerry, and my husband was with me. When we started the ultrasound, it was, this one's always really extensive. The ultrasound tech is very thorough, and we go through every organ system and every body part and count all the fingers and toes, and, frankly, I wasn't thinking anything of it.
And in the middle of the ultrasound, we noticed that the technician stopped talking. Jeez.
Call it mother's intuition, call it anything, but I started to have a sense of something's wrong. The ultrasound tech, I was really zoning in, and maybe it's my nervous nature. She kept going over certain parts of the baby's body. And I go, is something wrong? And she's like, the doctor will read you the results.
About 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Kristen called me and said, Mom, do you think there's something wrong with the baby?
The issue was scary in the sense that we learned that she was going to have a heart issue, Olivia was going to have a heart issue, and a cleft palate, cleft lip.
Olivia had so many different conditions and so many different defects that were affecting her. Why was there so much wrong with her?
And usually when these things happen, the doctors would say, hey, that's kind of indicative of maybe a bigger thing that's going on.
In the moment, all I could think was, this can't be real. How could this be happening to us?
And all of a sudden it was us, and we had no idea what it was going to be, what it meant. We had no answers.
The diagnosis that your child has a congenital heart defect can be extremely stressful, can be confusing. There's a whole ton of medical terms and jargon and a whole new vocabulary.
We actually recently did a study of heart families and found that parents of patients with pediatric heart disease have 3 times as great of clinically significant stress right now compared to the general New York City population during the height of the pandemic.
We needed to see all these doctors.
The onslaught of different specialties and doctors.
Every time we met a doctor, we had to tell the same story.
We saw plastic surgery, neurosurgery, pediatric surgery, and that wasn't even scraping the surface.
And so as the pregnancy progressed, needless to say, we were all, kind of on pins and needles trying to get ready for what might happen when Olivia was born.
I remember Brendan and I just kind of looking at each other the day before she was scheduled to be delivered via C-section, being like, I don't know how to feel. I want her to be here. I want to get started on helping her, but I'm also terrified of her being here. I don't know what this means for us as a family.
Now we're going into the pregnancy just a couple of weeks before, completely scared. We're not sure if Olivia's going to make it out. So what was supposed to be a super exciting day turned into easily the worst, 24 hours of our lives.
So she was born by C-section on March 27th of 2017. And that's basically when it hit the fan.
When she was born, all of the kind of the worst case scenarios that we thought of kind of came home to roost.
Olivia had her first heart surgery at 9 days old. Nothing can quite prepare you for seeing. Hold on, this one's tough. Nothing can quite prepare you for seeing your daughter come back from surgery with a chest full of staples. You want to take the pain away.
And so, what happened from there is just a very methodical, knocking down issues one by one, because Olivia also had issues with her eyesight, issues with her hearing.
After 3 open heart surgeries, they couldn't do anymore, but the heart was failing. She couldn't grow. So that's when the transplant was decided.
They did studies on her spine, on her kidneys, on her liver. Every single organ system I felt like was in our hospital room.
It was one thing after another after that.
At 39 days, we finally got the word that Livy was coming home. It was the scariest moment of our lives, trying to bring home a medically complex daughter.
And I remember so clearly saying to the doctor, who do I go to when we're discharged? Who's managing her care for me? And she was like, oh, that's a good question. I guess it's your pediatrician. I was like, my pediatrician has no idea what's going on. She hasn't even been here. She doesn't know. And they said, we'll give you discharge instructions and you'll have a lot of follow-up appointments.
We had over 20 meds we had to administer daily.
And you'll just have to manage it as best as you can from your end, but with the primary being cardiology. And I just remember being completely overwhelmed.
Although the hospital had all these great individual competencies in terms of cardiac, in terms of ENT, in terms of gastrointestinal, in terms of all these things, nobody really kind of pulled it all together. It was up to my kids, and their day in, day out effort to pull it all together.
I can be the poster boy for complex care. They sacrifice so much. They spent so many nights in the hospital with each of us. And it's not over. They don't stop. And we wouldn't be here without them. Yeah. Patients, parents are priceless.
I haven't really shared Patrick's story in detail before or too many times, but, when I think about it, it really is about the details. At my ultrasound, they determined that Patrick's trachea and esophagus were joined. I remember them telling me he had a tracheoesophageal fistula with esophageal atresia. I actually left the doctor's appointment and I went to Borders because this was before the internet was available. I didn't have my smartphone or anything. And I had to find a medical encyclopedia and look up what tracheoesophageal fistula meant.
Very quickly we were in front of a large table of every imaginable specialist. There was just a lot of terms being thrown around.
Intubation, myelomeningocele,
omphalocele,
jejunostomy,
NICU, PICU,
dysregulated,
J-tube, G-tube, ET-tube,
hemiplegic transischemic stroke,
diaphragmatic hernia,
hero doses,
dexamethasone,
gastroenterology, pulmonology, cardiology, otolaryngology, thoracic surgery, anesthesiology, radiology, pathology. The list, it just goes on and on.
And I just remember being completely overwhelmed.
It feels like getting another bachelor's degree.
Having a newborn is scary enough, and having a newborn with medical complexity is a whole nother world that you can't ever prepare for.
Yeah, we did a lot of reading, we moved, I quit my job.
I think that when you are one of the finest programs in the country, that offers a lot of opportunity to help others who might otherwise not get access to your program get access and get the best care. And we are innovating in that space and really offering our patients care about all their different organ systems and all the different concerns that they might have when it comes to the complex nature of our patients and our services.
We're fortunate to have such a talented team of physicians who provide not only day-to-day excellent care for all of those patients, but are also really of the mindset of what are we doing to push the field forward and provide for not only our patients today, but those in the future.
What we do at CS Mott Children's Hospital is extremely unique.
A great example of the ultimate complexity is the recent case of the conjoined twins
who were successfully separated at CS Mott Children's Hospital.
And the number of folks that were involved in participating to take care of those patients from a variety of different disciplines.
Researchers and physicians and nurses and our College of Engineering at the University of Michigan to come up with a game plan.
The collaboration, the teamwork, the choreography and the orchestration of that complex decision-making was extraordinary.
A 3D image was created of the twins, and the physicians studied the procedure before they had to go into surgery.
The connection actually extended from way up into the chest all the way down just below the belly button down here. So there was an extensive connection across here. My name is Bill Weddock. I'm one of the abdominal radiologists at the University of Michigan. My specialty is with adults and not pediatrics, but last year I was asked if I could do a 3D print to help the surgery and delivery of conjoined twins over at Mott Hospital. I figured anything that I could do to simulate what the surgeons might see in the delivery room may be helpful. The first day that I went over to one of the care meetings for the delivery, there was about 30 or 40 people in the room, and everybody went around and introduced themselves and said what department they're from and what they were actually going to do. When it came around to me, I said, I was from the adult radiology department, and I think people wondered what I was actually doing there. But I had a surprise. This is the actual 3D printed model that we made. This is 100% at life size, and so I handed it over to some of the caregivers, and I was really amazed because they immediately started sort of swaddling it and holding it, and they used it to kind of simulate the transfer of the baby after the initial delivery. About 2 months after delivery of the twins, we decided to do another CT scan to further evaluate some of the anatomy of the patients. That shows the various different vessels of the body and shows where there are any connections between the two sides. And so here's the modeling that we have. You can see over here, the red over here, this is the aorta. This is the blood vessel that comes from the heart. And then all of these down here, these are vessels that are heading into the liver. One other thing that's important about this is that there's some really close communication between some of these vessels. But as we rotate this around, you can really see that most of the vessels actually are away from this central plane here. And so this is going to later become the pathway where they do the incision and eventually separate the baby through the liver. It was really fascinating actually to watch the surgeons generate their surgical plan based on some of this modeling. And so you can see the bones through some of the transparent skin and muscles. And again, we made it so that the surgeons could actually open it up and look at it on the inside. And some of these other colored areas across the front here, those are parts of the sternum which had split and now were on either side. And so that was one of the concerns they had about how they were actually going to separate the babies and put them back together. But this showed very nicely where some of these little bones were actually going to be. And so they were able to put these together and get a nice sense of how things actually aligned and how big of the connection they were. Because remember, these are little babies that are kind of squirming around, but now they had a chance to actually look at them, and we can make sure that all the bones are intact, etc. So when it becomes time to do the separation, one of the concerns is that there isn't enough skin to actually connect across the midline. And so what the surgeons did is they inserted a couple of these skin expanders, which looks like this. It's filled with fluid and it's silicone, and it is It's put underneath the skin, and a little bit more fluid is added over the course of a couple of different weeks. And what that does is it stretches the skin that actually goes over it, so then we can actually have additional skin to connect across the midline. And so when you have something like this, when we do the closing, we can pull these two sides in a little bit, but we still need extra skin to be able to make across the midline here. I was then able to make a model of the inside volume of all the structures in both the chest, abdomen, and pelvis. Now we need to figure out how much skin actually needs to close. Now the idea is that the surgeon could actually draw on the edge here and cut down that line and kind of simulate what the surgical margin would actually look like. A couple months later, the twins had an additional CT scan so we could plan for the closure. And you can see that there's a little bit of a bulge here across the sides, and there's one on each side, and this is actually where the skin expander is underneath. In the operating room, they did find that there was enough skin to actually make the full closure.
Twins are separated.
Well, I think the most satisfying part for me was when George emailed me right after surgery and said that everything went well. I loved the video when it came out. I just could not believe it. It's amazing. I don't know how that family is actually gonna relate to all this stuff when it's all done. But now they have 2 kids just like I do. So, watching that video, I'm not sure anybody can have a dry eye.
I think our focus has really evolved over the last decade, just with all of the advancements in treatments and therapies that are available, to a focus simply on will the patient survive the operation or survive to discharge from the hospital, really to a dramatic shift in thinking about in every aspect of the care that we deliver, not how is this going to impact them today or tomorrow, but how is this going to impact the child's life when they're in high school, when they're 40 or 50 years old. There's really a transformation that's happened in the field.
We stay with the family. We stay with the child for at least 18 years.
When one of these critical diagnoses is made, we know that there's a likelihood that there's going to be a good outcome, but we also know this is a lifelong disease. And I think one of the first things I do is I share with the patients and the families that this is not a one and done. No matter how good our surgeons are, no matter how good our physicians are, we are going to be in a lifetime partnership together.
After watching our journey, my father-in-law, Will, my wife's father, he had come to us after a career and he wanted to do something more. He couldn't sit still. He wanted to go out and use his successful career and turn it into something to give back to the community.
And he said, you know, I'm retiring soon, and I feel like this little girl came into our lives for a reason, and we should do something with this.
So he approached my wife and I and asked us during our journey, during our experience with Livy and all the time that we've spent in the hospital and all the doctors that we've seen, what was missing from that journey? What was the gap? And without missing a beat, my wife Kristen said, care coordination.
It finally came to the point where we said, you know, we owe something back to these great people and all these other parents who are going through this, because that's what I always thought is, my gosh, it's really tough on these kids because, you know, they're born with all these challenges. But honestly, they don't have the cognition to understand what's going on. It's the parents who have the incredible cognition of what's going on and the stress and the strain. And the strain comes in all sorts of ways. It's physical, it's emotional, it's financial.
And that's where Little Heroes League was formed.
And we are so lucky because the Little Heroes League out of Chicago specifically reached out to CS Mott and want to partner with us on a care coordination program to help our children and our families. We couldn't be more excited to bring this program to Michigan, to our families, and to our children.
I'm Wade Leish. You might remember me from last year's CHAMPS for Mott event held at the Delta Hangar at the Detroit Metro Airport. This year, from the safety of your own home amongst family and friends, we invite you to join in to tonight's virtual event. Get out your phone, go to champsformott.org and click Bid Now. After a short registration process, you'll be able to bid on these event-exclusive packages that will be opening now and stay open until 9 p.m. tonight. We thank you so much for your support here tonight as we continue to be champs for Mott. All right, we're going to get started with our event-exclusive items that will be opening in just a few moments. To help with those, we have our little Victor Molly here with us. Let's welcome Molly.
All right, Molly, let's get ready to show them the first event-exclusive auction item.
This is an exclusive opportunity to join a Zoom call for 60 minutes with two NFL insiders, Dan Orlovsky and Adam Schefter. You can talk about fantasy updates, current NFL news, and all kinds of gossip from behind the scenes. Adam Schefter is a University of Michigan alumni. He's been on the ESPN Insider for over 10 years, and he's joined now by Dan Orlovsky, former 12-year NFL quarterback. Let's get the bidding started on this package.
Molly, are you ready for the next exclusive auction package?
Perfect. All right, this next package, you're going to join an exclusive Zoom call for 10 minutes with rock and roll legend, Suzi Quatro. Suzi's one of the first megastars in rock and roll history, and she sold over 55 million copies of her records, including her hit, Can the Can. Susie was also, you might remember, on the 1977 hit show Happy Days. She also made her London theater debut as Annie Oakley in Annie Get Your Gun. She's an author, poet, composer, and host of her own BBC Radio 2 series. Let's get the bidding going.
All right, Molly, on this next event exclusive package, let's send somebody to Paris.
Thank you. Courtesy of University of Michigan Regent Ron Weiser and his wife Eileen, they've offered up their Paris apartment for 7 nights. Now, this apartment is located on the Quai Bourbon on the Ile Saint-Louis, right in the heart of Paris. So go enjoy a fully furnished apartment and 7 days in beautiful Paris.
Why, Molly, I think you've been saving your allowance up for a beautiful Tiffany necklace.
This beautiful Tiffany necklace in drop leaf is set in platinum with a total carat weight of 1.4, valued at over $12,000. Be the winning bidder on this amazing package. We've heard some amazing stories in the last 30 minutes. Now is your opportunity to continue to show your support for the Mott Children's Hospital. So get those phones out, go back to champsformott.org and click the donate button. There you'll find several different levels of giving. Find a level that's meaningful to you and join others as you make a difference for the Mott Children's Hospital. As a special surprise, you're being challenged by Peter and Carolyn Mertz to collectively give $25,000. With your support, along with the Mertz's generous challenge, we could raise $50,000 here tonight in critical funding. Thank you so much for your attendance here tonight, for your support, and for your attention. Thank you.